State of Scrims podcast, episode 10, maybe. I'm spitballing here, but 10 seems right to me. Good week. We had 3 games.
All
Believe
bangers, all bangers.
yes. Metabusters defeats MVP. New York Nutbusters defeats MVP, getting their first win of the series or of the season, and then Andromeda defeats New York Nutbusters, which completes the Scrim Zone Circle of Suck, which, if you're not aware, this is basically a thing that I believe started in college football. But once every team in a division or conference or something had beaten one other team in a way that you create a little circle, that kind of creates the Circle of Suck. So we'll be going over that at some point on this podcast. But you've been waiting for it, I'm sure. We do have the presentation about the point system. It's something that perplexes a lot of people, so I figured we could do a little explaining of it. But if I can get it to pop up. Yes, okay. So
Let's go.
Mason's going to be looking at chat, so if you guys have any questions live, feel free to reach out there. If you have any questions and you're watching this delayed, send a message in the suggestions channel and we can clear it up for you. Do want to preface this with we have a lot of point system changes proposed. We're looking at addressing all these current problems that we're aware of. So if there is a problem with the point system that is mentioned during this presentation, or it's on a slide or something, we are aware of it and we're addressing it. A lot of them are already being tested right now, and the results are looking great. It's doing exactly what we want it to. So,
It's okay.
What are negative points?
Before
Go ahead, Mason.
before we get started, all of us high point players, I'm here to represent you as the people that are shackled the most by this dog shit system. We are out here getting punished for being good at League of Legends, so I'm here to represent you, my good friends. Anyways, continue.
Yeah. So, what are negative points? This is a kind of presentation covering the math of the Scrims point system and comparing it with ELO and kind of like the MMR systems in most video games and kind of like comparing them. So the current issues of the point system, it wouldn't be just to kind of tell you guys, hey, you can't complain about negative point players without addressing the fact that there are current issues in the point systems. We do have this asterisk saying that they're being addressed. We're already going over them. This system was originally designed purely for sign-up games. We weren't aware that we were going to have a team format, so the system wasn't really properly designed to balance around a team format. It was originally, hey, these people are going to be on random teams over and over again, and we're going to try and get it so that everyone can win 50% of the time based on which games are winning and losing in these sign-up games. So it was aimed to get each player to 50% win rate, as I kind of said, and it wasn't really designed for the same team playing together over and over and over again.
Yep.
And it can't really be accurately calibrated in 4 games especially, but also even when you get to 8 games, it's kind of hard to know for sure, just because of the following points where it's kind of like inconsistent in what roles you're playing, or if you synergize better with your teammates in some games versus others. And I think there are some games where people are trying a little less hard or trying more hard. I think there's a lot of factors that go into that. Sometimes it's just a lighter environment overall, so people are having a bit more fun with it. And I think
sometimes you get sweaty weirdos who try too hard. Yeah, it's a struggle.
Right, and the opposite of people who just say it's a sign-up, it doesn't matter, and then they just kind of run it down. And I think also some people view this as, if I try too hard, other people aren't going to have fun, and I think that's a bit of a disingenuous take. I feel like a lot of people take them pretty seriously. So trolling in purpose is really just going to harm everyone else in the long run and isn't going to do what you think it is. And another big issue is, I think, how people being negative points looks in the point system. And that kind of leads into the scapegoats category. I think there are a lot of people who catch a lot of blame for the point system, and it's not super accurate. So players who have negative points, I feel like, get called out a lot, even though it's not really a problem, which we're going to go into very heavily for the negative point players. There's high point players with a high volume of games. You can look at our boy right down here. I think Sam is another good example of that. I think Hongbaba is another one that people will know. These players have played a lot of games. And you'd think that maybe they're better or worse than their point values are dictating, but they've been at the same value for long enough that the system has pretty accurately figured out where they should be. And then
they're locked in point bill. It's fine.
Yes, and then I think role swapping is another thing that gets blamed a lot. where some players can like swap around roles, and it's like they shouldn't be allowed to do that, or they're worth more or fewer points because they can do that. That's something that's kind of accounted into the system already, because our system doesn't look super granularly. It's not like, well, you have this specific stat on this champion, so you should be this rating. It kind of just looks at everything holistically. So if you're doing a strategy that gives you an advantage, you're going to be rated as a better player because of it. So if someone has like a small champion pool or can only play one role, that's going to negatively impact their points just because they're not going to be winning as much compared to someone who is equal skill in that one specific role but can also play more champions or play different roles.
That's just how champion pool works. So.
Exactly. Okay. So we're going to look at a matchup. And does this bother you just looking at it? So we have a top laner, 18 points, jungle 24 points, bot 13 points on both teams. But the team on the right has a mid laner and a support who are both 20 points. On the other team, you have a mid laner who's 50 points. We have a picture of Faker to represent this player. And then we have a support who's worth negative 10 points. And we have a picture of Blitzcrank bot. That's going to be who we're referring to this player as. Both of these teams are even in points. They're both 95, and the average point value across both teams is 19 points. I think this is a game that would be very frustrating to a lot of players because they feel like Faker's allowed to play on this team, and they're just kind of throwing Blitzcrank on the team so that Faker's allowed to play. But if we move on to this matchup, this is different. This is an example of everyone's points just get bumped up. So on both teams, we have a 38-point top laner, a 44-point jungler, a 33-point bot laner, and the team on the right has 40 points for both mid and support, and the team on the left has a 70-point mid laner and a 10-point support player. So the big difference here is that the support player does not have negative points. And I think a lot of people kind of like to reference negative points as like you're just buying extra space, but you know, you look at this matchup, both teams are 195 points. The average point value for each player is 39 points. But I feel like overall we're going to have less issues with this matchup. I don't know if Twitch chat is responding to the message at all. Or...
You're good. I think it's a correct read.
Yeah.
It's like
cat. Okay.
Adjusting for inflation and whatnot. It's like I don't know. It's not anything too crazy. It's like
okay. So what about this matchup? So this takes the other extreme. Our top laner is negative 32 points. Our jungler is negative 26 points. And our bot laner is negative 37 points on both teams. And on the team on the right, we have negative 30-point mid, negative 30-point support. And on the left side, we have 0-point mid laner, negative 60-point support, right? So both totals are going to be negative 155 points. And the average point value is negative 31 points. And this one is obviously, like, this is super unrealistic. Like, who would even play in a league with a rating system like this, right? But they're actually all the same matchup because of how the rating system works. It doesn't really matter which of those three matchups it is. They're all basically the same thing. So we're kind of standardizing the matchups here around the 0-point mark, just to illustrate that. But in reality, the top laner was always 1 point below the average. The jungle is 5 points above the average. The bot laner was negative 6 points, or 6 points below the average. If we look at the team on the right, their mid and support were slightly above average. And if the team on the left, their mid laner was a very good player, 31 points above the average, but their support, 29 points below the average. So, you know, but this is the same, exact same matchup that we saw in each of the other three. And I think there's two main counter arguments, because a lot of the times people complain about negative point players because they're somehow like allocating extra points to the team. And when I've explained that if you just shift everyone up, negative point players aren't really negative points. They're just lower than the average. Here are the two things I hear a lot. You can't really do that because those matchups aren't the same because the point proportions are different. So you might say in the first example where Faker's 50 points, that's 63% of the budget you have for the team. But when you scale all the points up, Faker's only 36% of the budget. So he's closer to a third of the budget than he is to over half. And I think that makes sense. Easy read to look at it and say the proportion's different. And it is compared to the total points. And you can say the opposite for Blitzcrank bot. He goes from negative 10% of your total value to 5%. So you're making these lower players cost more and the bigger players cost less. And the argument maintains that the negative points create extra room for better players in a way that a positive point player wouldn't. So if you're adding this 10-point player to your team, you're losing points. But if you add the negative point player to your team, you're gaining points, right? And I think that's really where this comes down to. Then the other big argument is that there should be a point minimum. So why are these players going negative? That doesn't even make sense. How can be negative points? And usually people point to, like, say, chess, where you can't go below 100 elo. Or you point to League, where you can't be lower than Iron 4, right? And I don't think this is necessarily incorrect. I think there is a benefit to not being able to go below a certain rating, but I think it would hurt some players in the server because if you can't go any lower, that means if you're really struggling and you're not feeling like you have a place to really succeed in the server, you're not going to get that resolution. If you're just losing a bunch, you're going to continue losing a bunch because your rating isn't ever going to accurately reflect how you're performing in the server. So I am going to explain why these arguments aren't super accurate to how our point system works. But first, going to go over the difference between MMR in video games and how it generally works, and then the ELO system, which is used in chess and a lot of other competitions. It's commonly referenced. And a lot of people will say ELO and won't refer to the actual ELO system, so just want to clear that up. But how MMR works is it's usually paired with a rank. So in League, you have your rank, so you're like gold 3, but then your MMR might be like 1124, right? And that number doesn't really mean anything to you. And the MMR is basically just a guess at what the skill of the player should be. And there's a lot of crazy stuff that goes into these formulas, especially in a game like League where there's a lot of factors. But they're not really transparent about how the formulas work. It's kind of a mess. And the rank is not going to be the same as the MMR. So it's possible that if you're gold 3, like gold 323 LP, we'll say that, you could have MMR ranging who knows how far. It's really hard to tell with League, but you could have MMR that would equate to like silver. You could have MMR that would equate to plat. It could really be anywhere. It's kind of all over the place. And because of how this works, you could be Iron 4 and have MMR that would equate to below Iron 4. So there's not really a bottom to what your MMR can be, even though there's a bottom to what your rank can be. So there's kind of like a false floor to a lot of these systems, which is kind of interesting. And then we can look at ELO, which is another common system, and how ELO works, which is, I don't want to say closer to how the Scrim point system works, but it's somewhat similar. It's a zero-sum system. Basically what that means is anytime someone gains ELO, someone has to lose equivalent ELO. I think this doesn't work if someone's trying to lose ELO below the minimum, but otherwise, if someone gains something, someone also has to lose it. This doesn't always hold true for MMR, depending on the systems. And in the ELO system, your ELO is your rank. You don't have a rank that corresponds to your ELO. It's just one number, and that means everything. That's exactly how the Scrim point system works. Your point is your rank, or your value, or whatever you want to call it. And the rating differences of specific values in the ELO system directly correlate to expected win chances, which is a bunch of math stuff. Someone basically just sat down and just nerded out over a piece of paper for like forever and goes, if you're 40 points over this player, that means you're expected to win like 58% of the time, right? I'm just making up numbers there. There is an actual formula that you can look up and figure it out. But that's where the Scrim point system really differentiates, because that's really easy to calculate in a one-on-one example, or, maybe team versus team, but not. It's very hard to calculate 5 numbers added up to 5 numbers added up. The math's just not going to work out there. But yeah, so there is a minimum value, specifically in the chess ELO, which is, I think, the most popular use of it. But there's also a value that's meant to represent a beginner. So if you've never played the game before, you're going to be given, I think it's a 400 rating in chess. I could be wrong. But you also can't go below 100 points. But those are just kind of arbitrary numbers that someone guessed. But the other big thing about ELO is there's a specific formula to calculate every single little step of it. So you're not really using the ELO system if you're not following that formula. But it is also public, and it's very straightforward, as long as you know all the required information. So now that we have that as a basis, how does the Scrim Zone rating system differ from those two? There's not a single entry point, because if we just entered every player as like our average rating or the bottom rating, that wouldn't be super fair because a lot of people have played League before. If we were the game, it would be very different because we could assume no one's ever played League before, but we're obviously not. So we kind of
We
have
have
to
a base
just
system to go off of.
guess,
Yeah.
right? So we have to guess how good you are based on your rank, which is not perfect. There's a lot of ways we could do it, but just going straight based off of rank is, as the entry point, is probably the best way to do it because we're not guessing. And I feel like just guessing on players entering in would be unfair to you guys. So
Yep.
don't want to do it. And we are also trying to get people to feel included. There's a big difference between Scrim Zone and a lot of other in-house servers because a lot of other servers are going to say you have to be plat or you have to
You
be
have to be a
silver.
minimum ranking.
Right.
Yep.
Or it's like you have to be this and above. But we want everyone to be able to participate and win. And I think you can see that with we have people in this season of the team format that have literally like just started playing the game. We have people who have spent way too many hours in the game, right? Like we have a big range of stuff, but we want everyone to be able to
Yeah.
have fun. And you could argue that video games also want this, or that like chess also wants this, or like anything that has a ranking system also wants this, but it's not really true because the
Yeah.
game's giving you a rank. You want to be able to flex your skill or flaunt it or whatever, right? That's kind of different than being able to participate in an environment where you're in fair games all the time because you want to climb if you're trying to climb. So you will be able to win more of your games, and it's not really the same.
Yeah. It's not a 1-to-1.
Exactly. And uh, as I kind of mentioned in one of the earlier slides, is left pretty open ended. We're not doing what League's doing, where we're plugging in 8 billion different numbers about every single player and trying to figure it out based on that. It's really just looking, are you winning games that you're expected to win? And are you losing games that you're expected to lose? Because if you're expected to lose and you don't lose, that means you're probably better than you are. And if you're expected to win and you're not winning, that means you're probably like worse than we think you are.
Yeah.
But being able to play multiple roles, having skill in draft or good comms or good macro communication that isn't necessarily reflected in solo queue, that's going to affect your scrim rating in a different way than it's going to affect your league rank.
Yep.
And we also don't have any hard limits on rating. And the goal of this, as I kind of mentioned before, is that we want our lower point players to still have a chance to win. Because if, say, we had a player who was -5 points, but we didn't want to go below 0 points, and we just told this guy, hey, you're 0 points, just suck it up. You can't go below that. This person's just not going to win as much.
Yeah.
And why there isn't like a minimum at 0, why people can go below 0 is we just have to guess. A lot of stuff has changed. Like, we went from having 5 divisions in every rank to having 4, and then Iron gets added in, right? And now you have Emerald thrown in there, and everything's moving around. And it's also just super abstract. Like, we can guess that, say, a Bronze player is like 7 points, but that's like, it doesn't mean anything. It's a guess. We don't really know. And I think there's a huge range at what any player at any given rank could end up as. And there's a huge
Yeah.
disparity in some people's like internal rating points for us and their rank. It just doesn't line up in a lot of cases, which can seem frustrating. But it's just that these people have big differences in those factors that we mentioned before. Like maybe this player is
Yeah.
really good at solo queue and only plays one champion. So if they're playing in our server, that champion gets banned every game. So they're struggling a lot more.
Yeah.
But it would, if we just said you can't go below 2 points or you can't go below 0 points, that's just a completely random number that we picked.
Yeah.
The only set number we have, I'll finish my sentence and then you can go
Yeah.
ahead.
Go.
The only set number we have is the cap for points, and that's based off of 5 people of the average value of in the server. So that is based on something concrete that we do have stats to back up.
I do want to say there are some players that are just at like that have skills in scrims that like transfer more to like a scrim system than like solo queue would, right? Like I think one of the better examples was like when Rex first joined the server, he wasn't actually worth like super high points, and I think that was due to like inability to communicate and stuff like that. And then you see as he got better at the game and communicating in general, his points is like shot up, right? And it
Right.
like works for like a number of different players as well. Like there's just like a just different skill set to playing 5v5s versus playing solo queue, and I think it's a little underrated.
Yeah, I think
In general, and like the point system does a decent job of reflecting it, in my opinion. So
yeah, I think if we want to get into specific examples, I think I guess Stanley and Rex are two people you can point out.
yeah,
You can generalize this to people who play champions that are better in fives. Like,
yeah,
if you play a bunch of scaling mages, that's not going to help you that much in solo queue because a lot of times people are going to give up on the game before you get to scale.
yeah,
And if, say, you enter the server as like a diamond pure solo queue player, and the only thing you really improve is your macro and your mechanics stay the
yeah,
same, that's going to help you a lot more in an organized 5-on-5 scenario than it is
yeah,
going to in solo queue. Because you can tell your solo queue teammates to do whatever, and they're probably not going to do it, right?
yeah,
So that's going to help you out a lot more here than it is in a solo queue environment. So it is kind of hard for us to track that, and sometimes it takes a bit, which
yeah,
obviously is a bit unfortunate. But there's no way for us to like we can't just look at someone's account and we don't know this person and go, well, their macro is really good. It's just you can't do that.
yeah. You'd have to go through all of their games in VOD review, and even then, you don't know how much of that is them in game
Right.
calling those shots or someone else doing it. Like it's a completely impossible task to expect people to have like uh good points without adjusting manually based on performances in scrims, right? So
Yeah. Yeah, and I think the counter argument would be one tricks or people who play like just assassins or like pub stomping champions. They're going to be a lot worse in a 5-on-5 scenario than they are going to be in solo
yeah,
queue, or people who just don't have much macro skill or who haven't played in a competitive scenario before, or people who literally only play by themselves. They're going to have kind of worse skills going into this than people who play
yeah,
organized play a lot are going to have. So
yeah,
moving on. So why can't you just say, well, Faker used to be 63% and now he's 36%? The proportions in this don't matter. And the stat that does matter for these teams is the points away from the average, which is what we showed in that last slide. And this is because each team is required to have 5 players. So if I only had 3 players and they were like 30, 30, and 35 points, you could say I've run out of points, right? So these players are my entire team. You could say that, right? And it's not really true because you could say that those players are better than average and that they are making your team so good because they're your whole team. But in your head, you're assuming that the other 2 players are average players,
mhm,
which is going to put your budget way over. You can't do that. So what you actually have to think of is how many points over the average these players are. Because for every like good player that you have, you also have to have a player who isn't performing as well to kind of balance them out. And
mhm,
because most players who are participating have played enough games that the rating system does an accurate job of capturing their points, this is going to create a balanced team. So that's why teams of 5 19-point players are equivalent to teams of like a 19-point player and then 2 really high point players and 2 really low point players, because some of these players do have skills that are more transferable or are just like they have more experience at the game, and that's going to be countered by these players who don't have as many of those skills or who haven't played as much of the game.
mhm.
And like you could take it to the extreme, right? And you could say that you could just add one 95-point player or even like a 100-point player, and then everyone else on your team is negative. And you could say that like, well, you're just throwing these players on there to allow this other player to like stomp every game. But whenever you're saying that, you're ignoring the fact that the other players on the team are still participating in the game.
Yeah,
And I think sometimes people picture that like there's like a 0 player or like a bot, like even a bot would be better. Like it just doesn't, nothing really adds up. Because the baseline shouldn't be 0. The baseline should be a typical player in the server, like an average player, right?
yeah,
So if you added a 50-point player, that would put you 31 points over your expected budget compared to the 19. That's the average. But you'd have to lose the 31 points somewhere. And because of that, running a negative 10-point player compared to a 10-point player is the same difference as running a 10-point player instead of a 30-point player somewhere. And I think, like, I completely agree that it's really hard to see that because you just look and you see negative and you're like, that doesn't make any sense. Because it doesn't, and that's our fault. Like, I'm going to take
yeah.
accountability for that. We
It just
just
looks bad optically. Yeah,
exactly. And that's something that we do need to address, which is partially why I'm doing this. And I think a lot of reasons that stuff looks off is because you assume that 0 points means zero skill, right? So you could argue that like a 20-point player is like twice as good as a 10-point player, has twice as much value. But it's just not true because in order for something to be double, there needs to be a zero value, and there's no way to really define zero skill in League, which I think is what makes things really frustrating because you see someone that has negative points, right? And you expect this player to have a negative impact on the team. Like, you put them in a League game versus like no one else, and they still manage to lose, which is just not accurate, and that's a failure on us to get like a better center for the point system, right? But if say someone joins Scrims and they've never played a MOBA before, they like play a bunch of Counter-Strike, everyone in the server is going to beat this player at League, at least for their first few games, because they just don't know how it works. They're going to start pressing WASD to move around, and it's not going to work. But would you say that this player is zero skill? You could, but compare the person who has like 2 million hours in CSGO and has never touched a MOBA to the person who doesn't even know what a computer is. They're going to beat that person, right? So does that mean that the person who doesn't know what a computer is has zero skill? It still necessarily doesn't, because there could be someone who's worse than them. And even among all those people in these weird groups that are like not MOBA players, they're like, there's variety there. So it's just like there isn't a zero skill line. Like, to be honest, where you see the last bullet point, where 0 points in was literally just whatever made the math easiest at the time that the system was originally created, which I guess is just laziness and lack of pre-planning. But yeah, so I think that's the explanation. And I do think if our system was like this slide from the beginning, where everyone is just much higher points,
it wouldn't look as bad, but it'd be the same issue, right?
Right. It's the exact same system, and I think people would complain less. But I just didn't plan ahead far enough to realize that that was true. So I will accept fault for the system being confusing and frustrating, but I don't think it's the things that people are pointing out as problems aren't the real issues, which I think is just something I want to address. So if you have any questions, feel free to shout them out in the chat, or Mason, if you can just think of anything that people would want to ask and send them my way.
I think Avery is talking about how it's less about negative points and it's just that it's like, how can he be negative when I see him compete with these players that are worth much, much more than negative points? It's because his okay, so in the past seasons he hasn't been on like super winning teams, right? And it's mostly just because
if you want me to handle this one,
system is like
get it also.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. So this is this original point that I showed in the first slide that is very frustrating. It's probably the most glaring problem in the system, and it is something that we already have the code written to address, and the testing is looking fantastic. Basically, it's designed to have different teams every time. And if the teams are different every time, it's really easy to identify which player is causing teams to lose a lot, right?
Yeah.
But if you have the same team over and over again, the way that the system used to work, it would think, well, all 5 of these players are the problem, clearly, so they all suck, right? Which is not true in most cases. So the adjustment that we've made and are testing right now is if a team has already lost points, so say you have a team in the team format who's like 8-0 and they're playing an 0-8 team, you're going to expect the 8-0 team to beat the 0-8 team. So if that happens, there's going to be no change in the point system anymore. What used to happen is that if the 8-0 team beats the 0-8 team, they're still gaining points, which just doesn't really make any sense because they're performing how you expect them to. But in the past, that wasn't how it worked. If you lost as a 0-8 team, even if you're expected to lose already, you're still losing a lot of points. So some players are going to be a lot lower down in the point system than is accurate just because they've ended up losing a lot. I think in an environment when you're only playing pickup games, that makes a lot of sense because it's not a big deal if this one person has lost 20 games in a row that they get to have a bit of an easier game. I feel like that's not frustrating. But when that happens to 5 players all at once, then it can lead to huge imbalance, which is what we're trying to address.
Yeah. That makes sense.
If Avery, if you can send a message saying if that cleared anything up, I'd be willing to answer that as well.
Yeah, but TLDR for this entire thing, high point players are permanently on the cross forever. We struggle for nothing. Anyways. But yeah, I
Right,
do also
here,
think
I can skim over chat. If you can go on this and I'll scroll through.
yeah. Uh um I literally just lost my train of thought. Jacob just has played a lot of games, and not to clown on him, but I think he's improved a lot this season. So I think
This is also true.
that is more so of a thing rather than uh anything to do with the point system in general. Like players just sometimes improves, and I think that's not like super reflective in the point system until you play a lot of games, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think what the big issue is, or not the big issue, but something that happens a lot is just there are people who aren't accurately rated. And I think that also comes down to the second point that we have here, where it's that people can't really be accurately calibrated in 4 to 8 games. And there's a lot of people who played just the minimum and stopped playing,
Yeah.
which is just going to lead to their points not being super accurate.
Yep.
So I think what we're going to be expecting to see moving forward is a lot of like incentives or rewards for people who are playing more signups, and I think we're going to try and make the sign up process a lot easier. But also, we're going to have another yearly survey like we did last year, where we're going to try and figure out from you guys specifically, like what is causing these frustrations, and we're going to try and work to address everything. Because I think, like, I just wanted to be clear that as admins, we are very aware like stuff is not working exactly how it should be, and we'd like to fix it.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of things that you all are finding to be frustrating, we also know. It's just us complaining about them publicly isn't going to really cause anything good until we have a fix for them, and we don't really want to announce a fix if we don't have one. So
Yeah. But yeah, I think that's good. I think we covered everything. Daily mandatory 6 o'clock scrims. I agree, Stanley. Get those running. Thank you.
yep, everyone is everyone's required to play. 150 people in the lobby at once.
Oh god.
But yeah, yeah, I'll leave this open for any questions, and if anyone has anything that they want to ask later in the podcast, you can just throw it in Twitch chat until we're done, and feel free to throw something in suggestions channel if you're watching this later. But I hope this gives some insight, and yeah, there are definitely people who are not exactly where they should be, but I don't think it's necessarily a problem until you have a bunch of those people all clumped up together, which has happened a few times, but you know, I think it's been handled well overall, and I hope that happens for the season as well. So, that's and Mason. Jonah pointed out, surely Mason has 60% win rate every season is not complaining. He is actually decreasing, guys. Like, let me be completely honest here. If you look at his signups, it is going towards 50, which is where it should be going. He just happens to perform well in team format a lot because he's the team building genius, I would say. He always manages to put himself on the teams that are going to win. So, and I feel like if you're having 60% on some of these, it's, you know, that comes down to more of like a team environment and like work ethic thing, more so than actual skill a lot of times. But obviously, there are some scenarios where teams are just better because of imbalance in formation, which is what we're trying to fix.
I will argue. Oh shit. Hold on. I will argue. I try my best in team format a lot, and
Right.
it shows in a lot of my teams. So
Yeah.
I'll
Yeah.
be
I
right
mean,
back,
I think Mason's a good example of someone who tries very hard in signups and team format. It's just easier to inspire your teammates to try hard in team format than it is in signups because you have more time off the clock yelling at them. But okay, we're gonna try and move on to normal state of scrim stuff. That took 35 minutes, which I wasn't entirely expecting. So just want to apologize for that. But hopefully I didn't just leak anything on my Google Doc. Oh, the Tom Kench picture is exquisite. You guys should be blessed by the fact that you even got to see a glimpse of that. But yeah, I'll keep this up here a little bit until Mason gets back. He is strutting his way over here. I believe he just knocked something over. But I think the season has gotten a lot more interesting. I think New York Nutbusters was a few games back, and now that they've gotten a few more of those, we have a better picture of what the team standings are really looking like. And I think the race for the bottom is a lot less clear than it was previously, which is super interesting. I think before it was just everyone assumed it was going to be these four teams making it to playoffs. But now a lot of stuff down here has kind of gone, I wouldn't say haywire, but some interesting things have happened, right? Mass Valorant Pirates was a bit higher up, and they've fallen a bit down in their rankings recently. And Andromeda was able to grab another win. Direct Nutbusters was able to grab another win. So a lot of these bottom teams are pretty close. If you looked at these percentages for chances of qualification for playoffs, previously it was about like 95% MVP, and then there's a few percentages there showing up for Andromeda and the New York Nutbusters. But now Andromeda has a 35% chance of qualifying, New York Nutbusters is closer to 15, and MVP has fallen down a little bit to 85%. I think it is very likely that whoever makes it is going to be determined off a tiebreaker, which I think would be super interesting. The tiebreaker rules are set, so it wouldn't necessarily lead to a tiebreaker match, but there's always a chance. But overall, none of these three teams are able to finish cleanly in first to third. Only MVP could tie for third. The best that Andromeda or New York Nutbusters could do is tie for fourth. But the greatest percent chance of happening is these teams kind of tying down here. There's like a 12 to 28% chance of a tie for fourth for a lot of these teams. There's some ties for fifth, but that's kind of, sleeper. New York Nutbusters has a solid like 3% chance of getting into fourth. It sounds low, but that's actually like not terrible. That's like, if 5 matches go one way, the other 2 matches don't matter, is basically what that means. And then Andromeda has a 12.5% chance, which instead of 5 matches needing to go one way, only 3 matches need to go one way. Watching Mason clean up the drink he spilled on the ground is very funny, by the way. If you're just listening to the audio, it might be worth going back to this just to look at that. But anyway, I think in summation, I think it is very interesting at how the rest of the season is going to resolve. There's only 128 scenarios remaining. And some people have noticed that there's a lot of games that still need to be played and not much time for them to get done. So we could see some forfeits and no games that happen that determine things, which could be kind of interesting as well. But as it stands right now, MVP has a 50% chance of just cleanly qualifying for fourth place. And the interesting thing is that only these 3 teams could qualify in fourth place. Everyone else is able to just cleanly finish in the top 3. I was just going over Foldy Sheet stuff, Mason. Basically, the short of it is that Spectres, Metabusters, and Rift Sharks are basically clean in the top 3, and the other 3 teams are pretty close in contention for these last 3 spots. I think MVP has been trending a little bit downwards recently. They had a really strong start to the season, but I feel like Andromeda has been putting in a lot of practice over the season. I think it's really showing in their gameplay recently.
Yeah. But also, I think I'm allowed to complain about having a 60% win rate and still winning. So it is my right. You understand? Thank you, Jonah.
Surely. But yeah, I will actually update this real quick so that the games are in the right order. But so far next week, the only game scheduled is Rift Sharks versus Metabusters. So that'll be pretty exciting.
Yeah.
Maybe more games will get scheduled next week. Fingers crossed. Captains are working on it.
Yep.
But
so wait, has every team's so wait, the 3 teams at the top have locked, right?
Technically, we
Or
could
is it
still
close for
tie
Rift?
for third. Rift Sharks could still tie for third. Let me pull up the test sheet to figure out who we could tie with, because I don't want to do a bunch of sorting on the main one. Although it would be faster now. But
Stanley says you
if
will be 50% win rate. Yeah, maybe one day.
okay, if we tie for third, we tie with MVP, and
Okay.
we are actually 3-2 in games against them, so we'd be winning the tiebreak. So yeah, it's
Okay.
just a
So
clean.
all three are locked. Okay.
Yeah,
Huge. That's hype.
yeah, that's kind of interesting. But yeah, second place matters a little bit. First place is the
I
one you
think.
really want, though,
Yeah.
because you get to choose your
Because you do want
opponent.
you
Yeah,
definitely want the opponent selection. I think there are. It's gonna be a bit of a rough race to the top, but it should be a fun. There's all the games still matter and stuff like that or
right.
whatnot.
Yeah,
You
and I
know?
mean, all the three teams at the top could finish anywhere in the top three. That is like not set in
Yeah,
stone at all, which I think is super
yeah,
exciting. So you have a kind of race for the top slot, and you have a race for that fourth place slot.
yeah.
Um,
So that there's still a lot of games to be played this season. So I'm pretty hyped for that.
Yeah, and honestly, like any of these three teams, I think at the bottom would be really exciting to have in playoffs. I think a lot of them
Yeah,
have strengths and weaknesses against certain teams, which is
yeah.
pretty cool.
Would be really hyped to watch. I think yeah. Also, the three teams at the top are like pretty flexible and like where they end up, right? Like I think all of these teams could hit first. I think all of these teams could be third. Like
Yep. There is a high likelihood there's
too.
a tie for first, by the way. So
Oh really?
that could
Let's
be
fucking
interesting.
go! I'm
I mean,
so hyped for
again,
that.
I really doubt it's going to come down to a tiebreaker if it happens, but
Uh huh.
I don't know. If there was a series against the top teams to determine seeding, that would be really cool. But
That would be
um,
sick, honestly.
yeah, the Rift Sharks tiebreakers are completely undetermined. Metabusters is definitely favored. Metabusters can't outright lose the tiebreak versus Rift Sharks, I don't think, unless it comes down to game differential, which then that's a whole nother mess.
Huh.
But Noam is saying Spectres beats them in the tiebreaker. I'm not entirely sure on
I
that.
would. I think we're even. No.
Yeah, I thought it was a two
Oh
one
no,
both
I think we're
times.
2-3. It was no. They 2-0'd us the first
Okay,
time.
yeah. So Spectres would beat Metabusters if they tied for first. And
So they
then,
have to go. Okay.
but yeah, Rift Sharks is undetermined against both the other teams because we haven't played. Like those are our two remaining matches, so
Yeah.
that could be pretty interesting.
That's hype.
Yeah, I actually. Oh wait, we can look at the results here. So if we just scroll over these top, like this line and above, are all the scenarios in which. Okay, so yeah, if we win our next two games, we aren't guaranteed. Oh wait, never mind. There's a lot of scenarios. Oh, oops. Hold on. But yeah, I think we aren't guaranteed first or even tied for first. I'm not. There is scenarios where we can cleanly get first though, which is what I wasn't sure about. There are scenarios in which we can win our next. Oh no, wait, never mind. That's if we don't win. Okay. TLDR: if Rift Sharks wins our next two games, we could cleanly get first, but also couldn't. So who knows? It's a bit exciting there, but should be a pretty good time. And then I believe if Metabusters wins both of theirs, they also don't necessarily lock first, but I think it's easier for them to lock first than it would be for us, which makes sense.
Yeah.
And
Wait, what
same
did the last
logic
two
would go
teams
for
were playing?
Spectres. What?
What did the last two teams?
You are
Or the last two
playing.
games?
You're playing us and York Busters.
Oh, okay. That's
Oh,
hype.
Spectre still has 3 games left, which I did not realize. But I will go out of my way to say that that is not their fault. So we'll see.
Yeah.
Scheduling has been a bit of a mess for some teams. So, quality of the system overall is something to be debated, and we will be meeting with captains to determine that. If we just want to look at game differential, though, Spectres is up 9 games, Metabusters is up 6, Rift Sharks is up 4, MVP is down 3, Neuric Nutbusters down 7, Andromeda down 9. So that's generally how these tiebreakers might end up going. So, I don't know. We would have to stomp, and Spectres would have to not do very well in order for us to get the tiebreaker against them, unless we 2-0 to beat them. So, it just gets kind of complicated.
Math.
All this stuff is just kind of crazy. I've actually accidentally just full screened my application to the point where I can't unscale it. Interesting. How do you... Oh, I see it. Okay.
We should just do one for all for last series. Agreed. One for all Lisa inspectors. Thoughts?
Dude, I wish we could do more custom games like that. I'd be down to Nexus Splits, but...
Oh yeah. Fucking inspectors. One for Nexus splits. For our final series.
Nah,
Thoughts?
you already know we're running Nexus Splits for fun scrims, so those should be a blast, but we will not be tainting the... Oh, I don't have the Andromeda logo downloaded on my computer. Shit. Hold on. Give me a second to pull that one. But yes, I am going to diagram the Circle of Suck real quick, and we can kind of talk about the rock, paper, scissors-ness of this season, because I think that's a big talking point that we had going into it. And I think it actually did play out, which is kind of interesting. But I just need to get all my pictures so it actually looks good. Wait, I actually do have it on my hard drive, just not where I thought it was. Maybe? No, I don't. Okay. Andromeda logo.png. God bless. Apologies for the delay here. I thought I was prepared, but they got their logo in a little late, so shit happens.
Said fucking. Oh wow.
Okay, here we go. Now let me get these scaled. Can you be my eyes on the stream and tell me if these things are actually showing up?
Nothing is showing up currently.
Okay.
Okay, now it is. We see the Andromeda logo.
Is the edge of the black border off the screen, or?
Yes.
Did I just fix it?
Nope.
Oh, I mean, like, can you see gray?
Yes. No.
Okay.
Yes.
Whatever. I'm just simply moving these over. Oh, the New York Nutbusters is going to be rough because they are black on black.
Oh, they have a black logo. It's doomed.
Here we go. We will do a little bit of the dark gray. There we go.
Okay, it's a little easier. There we go.
Okay, cool. Apologies again. Should have set this up
color.
beforehand, but happens.
Yeah, we kind of just crunched the time because we were bored. So
Yes, I actually wasn't planning on doing this until someone asked me to. I believe it was Noam, so shout out to them for reminding me of it. I was just going to post an image in Gen Chat, but... Oh shoot, I'm trolling.
and then that Busters 2 outlet. Surely, that's the take. Also, I'm gonna say this in stream as well. I'm allowed to complain about having a 60% win rate and this season because I have to play like my 5th best champion every series. It fucking sucks. Let me complain. Thank you. I'm the victim forever.
So true. Okay. Well, what we are going to do is we can take a team who has only lost once, right? And who is the team that beat Spectres? Mason, do you remember?
I think it was Metabusters? Question mark?
Correct. So now we can put Metabusters on this part of the circle. Now, Mason, what teams have you lost to?
I think we lost to Rift Sharks?
Incorrect.
Oh, no. Was it MVP?
Yes, MVP has beaten you. I think another team also beat. I think it was Spectres, right? But Spectres is already out of the loop, right?
Yeah.
So we can discount them. And now there's actually, up until today, there was only one team that could go here, or there were 2 teams that could go here. But now it is Nutbusters who is the ones that have defeated MVP, and then Andromeda now has a defeat over Nutbusters in addition to their defeat over MVP. So now we can put Andromeda here, and then that will complete the circle if I can do this right, I might have not budgeted my space properly. Again, was planning on just making this asset off stream and then sending it, but that would put Rift
Nah, it looks
Sharks
so
here
much better
to complete
here.
the
Hello?
circle. Oh, and it's
This
like
is a sick
totally
circle.
off screen. You like can't even see it. Splendid. Um, Here, let me just do a little bit of this, and then we can do that, and then here we can scale it down. So we can do that,
Also,
and
in my
then
defense, I do know what series we have played. I just may have forgot.
okay.
I've been there for every single one, so
Is that true?
yeah.
You sleep through
I've run.
everything but your team series.
Yeah, that's the important one. Question mark?
Yeah, you're right. I just don't like it.
Yeah, you wish I would sleep through the games where we play you, huh?
Something like that. Okay. Anyway, here is the circle. Um, so I think it does give us an opportunity to kind of talk about like strengths and weaknesses of each team, because I think this is something
Yeah.
that we were aware was something that was pretty present going in.
Mhm.
I feel like the one that's most clear to me is New York Nutbusters. I feel like they have very good synergy between their soul lanes and their jungle. Um,
Yeah,
and
I think they finally figured it out.
right,
Honestly,
I
absolutely let them.
feel like New York Nutbusters' big strength is they have really innovative drafts, and they also
Uh-huh.
have really strong cohesiveness between their jungle and the two soul lanes that they like to play through generally. And they were able
Yeah,
to use that to get an edge over MVP, which we saw. Blake performed really well this week, and especially in combination with Mike, and I think Adam also did pretty good. So they were able to
yeah.
get the dub. MVP versus Metabusters, that series was a very long time ago, but I think their big strength there was Heroic simply just performed like a
Oh,
maniac and was able to
yeah, and
beat you
I think they
guys.
were utilizing the Puza like York split push strat a little bit better in those series.
Oh right, because
Like I think
this
he
is the
was
one where
able to.
Cam went top, right?
Yeah, he
Yes.
was.
Yeah.
Or no, he got 1v1 by the York, which was
Right.
I'm bringing that up again, Cam. I'm sorry, bro. This one's going on the permanent record. But basically, I think they were utilizing like the power of the split push to like draw out these like longer games and like force Meta Busters to keep making mistakes, and then they let Heroic like just start really fisting the team fights. So
Yeah, I mean, I think to put it a little more concisely, I think they played through the 1-4 comp, and I think it really punished the Metabusters because I think
wait, Rex, you don't know? Hold on, I'll find the clip. I'll find the clip.
oh,
Fear not,
it's
brother.
pretty good. But yeah, I mean, I think during that series, I think earlier in the season when they were playing through their big strengths a little bit better, they were able to get the defeat. Or they defeated Metabusters. The side laning was looking really good, and the core four players that were not Puza were sticking really well in the four part of the 1-4. I don't know. Their 4v5s were very strong when they had to do them, and they were winning the 4v3s when multiple people were sent to deal with Puza.
Yeah,
Metabusters defeating Spectres, I think, is pretty straightforward. Just it's very hard to draft against the Metabusters, and they were kind of able to use that. And I think Spectres had some good draft setups. They just had to deal with a few strategies that they weren't expecting, which was pretty hard for them. So just the pure flexibility of Metabusters, I think, shone through. Spectres just kind of outhands us. I think their mid games and team fights are so good. I think they
okay.
are definitely the strongest out of all the teams. At basically, you just go from like 8 to 18 minutes of the game, and no one's outboxing Spectres. It's kind of disgusting. And we kind of fell apart during the end of that time period in a couple of our games, which really sunk us. I think why we were able to prevail against Andromeda is just we're very steady across the entire map. We don't really have any clear weak spots in our team, and I think that allows us to not lose against teams who are kind of more asymmetrical. I feel like Andromeda's power budget is more towards certain parts of the map, and we were able to not lose there, and still were able to find wins on other parts of the map in both of our series against them. And then if we
Yeah,
go down to uh, Andromeda versus New York Nutbusters, we just saw there. I mean, Stanley, Arnie just put on solid performances there, but really
Yeah,
everyone
I
across
really
the
want to
map
shout out
looked super
Arnie as well.
solid. But
Yeah.
I just feel like that team has a few standout players that if you leave them uncontested and let them get the picks they want, it's like actually GG's for you. The Rel
Yeah.
came through, and Stanley found a control mage that was really solid in the meta right now, and was able to get a lot of power out of that. We
Uh,
also did
we
get to
did see
see,
the we did see the reason why this route has not been let through. By the way, this champion is
yes,
not fucking balanced, and PB is really fucking good at it. So, yeah, there is a reason this champion has not touched the rift yet. So,
yeah. Yeah, and just to clarify, this does not mean that like each team is outright better than the team that they have the greater than symbol pointing to. It's just they took a series off of them, and we've now made it so that you can form the circle, which was not true until literally today. So, just a little cool anecdote. I think it's a cool talking point. It really doesn't mean too much in the scale of things. It's just a little hee hee ha ha tradition. Kind of in the same sense as the foldy sheet, except the foldy sheet actually
oh, is it
matters.
Arnie and not Arnie? My bad, bro.
Oh, that's
Sorry.
my bad.
Yeah, Dean, get it right. God. But yeah, I think he did a really solid job of performing coming in as a new player on Andromeda. The GP performance was pretty good. And what did he play in the first game?
Uh,
Do you remember?
Renekton.
Oh, the Renekton probably looks good. I didn't watch the first game. I
Yeah.
may or may not have been taking a couple naps.
Nah, he
Should
did
have been
quite well
awake.
there. I don't
Yeah,
think the games are logged yet for that series, so it's hard to look at them. Maybe someone will
yeah,
have. Nope, never mind. But anyway, if you haven't seen that series, actually check it out. I feel like that was one of the best ones all
it's a good
season.
series.
Both of the games were
It's a good series.
absolute bangers. Um,
Uh-huh.
we
The
can
Zyra
take a
jungle coming in hot.
oh spicy stuff there. We can take a quick look at New York Nutbuzzers versus MVP. I don't want to stretch this out too long. We're running
Yeah,
a bit close to our hour mark. Am I not sharing it? Oh,
you
I'm
can
not
go
showing
over,
Chrome.
right?
Oops,
No, you're
oops.
not
Okay,
showing
there
it.
we go. Well, we didn't miss anything, so that's always good. But
Uh-huh.
New York Nutbusters just completely weak-sided Dave into the mid lane versus Heroic, which I feel like did a really good job of neutralizing their normal power point.
Yep.
We did see Heroic play Garen mid. Is that correct?
Yeah. To
That's
be fair,
crazy.
I talked to this with Blake. This is the dog shit Garen spot. You're playing into like 5 range champions,
Oh
and
yeah,
good
this
luck ever
is.
catching anyone with a karma. And also,
I mean, you're
they
the
took
four,
Conquer
five range
instead of the
champions,
phase
right?
rush.
There's full
Yeah,
team.
they have the
Yeah.
five. Well, I don't really count Garen as like a range champion. He kind of counts, but it's
Yeah.
like, but they also took Conquer over the phase rush in this setup. You're just never hitting anyone
Oh yeah,
ever
you
if
need
you
the
go
slow
Conquer in this
resist
setup.
into
By the
Ash
way.
and Karma and everything.
Yeah, it's just not doable. I think it was really grief, but I think the pick like overall is fine, kind of, but it's not good here, especially on your R5. You're utilizing an R5 for Garen mid into 5 range champions. Come on, man, we can't be doing that.
Oh, that was the R. I assumed that it was picked early so that Blake couldn't get it.
No, that was an R5.
Oh,
That was an
that's
R5.
crazy. Okay, yeah, I wasn't able to catch that series. I was out, but
I
I
didn't really
guess
like it,
we can
but
just chalk the second game up to questionable draft. But I do like the role
yeah,
swap coming out from MVP. I
yeah,
was
the roll
actually going
swap
to
was
use
really
this
good.
episode to talk about it as a possibility if they hadn't done it. But last season, obviously, this team was a bit lower on the standings. They pull out a role swap. They send Heroic mid. Val goes into the jungle, and things get crazy. I feel like they improved a lot going from that. It looks like they're going for something similar here. I feel like it looked pretty good. It just seemed like the Nutbusters had their number there, which made it a bit difficult.
Yeah. Blake on. Oh, I do also want to shout out the Mike Shaco build. He went. You know the support Shaco build where they go like Umbral Glaive into AP.
Yeah,
Bro was
I
whipping
heard
that
it
out.
was
That
interesting.
was so hype. That was so hype. I love that build from him. Do
Okay,
we want to talk about the?
yeah, we have a quick minute for it. I think
Yeah.
the first game for MVP looked really, really, really solid.
Yeah.
Second game
They
draft
just
by
sort of had the
MVP
number.
was unfortunately just really awful.
Yeah.
You're not doing the same thing. And I feel like they could have gone for a bit more comfort with some of these champions. And this like Lissandra, Lisa, and Renekton is like god tier. Like it's such a
It's
good
the
it's
early
such a
game
good
first
combo
poke.
in
Yeah.
fives, and then you
Yeah.
have your two one tricks in the bot lane on their champions. Literally
Yep.
highest mastery by I think like a factor of 2 for both of them. Then you run that
Yep.
back. I don't like the top side combo as much as I did in the previous game in
Mhm.
isolation, but MVP just they actually had a really good run in the game. They had like a full scaling comp, and it came online,
Yeah.
but just like a little too late. But that's my
Yeah.
thoughts on it. You have 20 seconds, so
Yeah, it was a good series. Rex pulling out a very solid jungle performance after the middling ADC performance. Role has no impact or whatever. But yeah, fun series, was good to watch. Kathy also playing the Aatrox top. My go. Anyways, yeah, that's about it.
Yep. Keep Rex jungle. He doesn't shouldn't be going to the other roles. I think it's just
Yeah,
face.
true.
But that's it. See y'all guys. Thanks for watching. Peace.